here's Brody Brazil.
Twitter has definitely changed for me in the last couple of years. I don't know that I use it as much or the same as I used to, but there's an account on there which I highly recommend you check out. You give them a follow. That's Brooksgate. They just joined in August of 2023, not even a year old, but they pump out some of the most creative baseball stats and what I'm calling here baseball stats you actually need. This is like the third different video I've done using their content. I truly hope they don't mind. I'm just trying to amplify the really good work that they do and give some context to go along with it. So let's take a look at some of the stats they've found from this month of May 2024 in this baseball season. These are league average infield positions this year, like where the defensive players are actually lining up to field baseballs in game action. And this is interesting, right? Because you can't do the shift anymore. You literally have to have two infielders on the right side, two infielders here on the left side. Take all that away. But you can see versus right-handed hitters, yeah, they are definitely shading the second baseman over that way. Shortstop's playing a little bit deeper in the hole. But look at this. I mean, left-handed hitters, they've always done this. Major League Baseball has really shifted, really altered its defense for left-handed hitters. Like this second baseman is playing a lot closer to first base than normal. Look at the shortstop. We've seen this a lot, I think, in the last couple weeks. Shortstops are playing basically right up the middle against left-handed hitters. And I've always wondered, why do they shift harder on lefty bats versus righty bats? If you really think that somebody's got the tendency to pull, does it have to do with the righty-lefty pitching matchup of the at-bat, generally speaking, or do lefties just generally pull more, or you want to play them that way more, fewer lefties taking at-bats? I've never really figured that part out of it. But anyway, just something interesting to take note of here. The league average infield positioning this year, while there is no shift, they're obviously playing it just about as close as possible. Here's another thing real quick that I'll point out too before we let this one go. Look at the first base position here. The first baseman for left-handed batters, you're thinking pull, right? So the first baseman is way back behind the bag versus even a right-handed batter who might pull to the third base side. That third baseman is still playing pretty tight on the hot corner as opposed to playing, back here on the dirt, like kind of where the first baseman is here. Anyway, just something to point out. These are great stats, right? Where do you find this information? How about this? Fangraphs projected win totals from spring training, like preseason, versus where these teams are currently at. And by the way, again, the records might be a few days or games behind by the time you watch this, but generally speaking, as of recently, here's how it shakes out. And what I find interesting is you've got some really, teams that were bad last year. The A's, the Kansas City Royals, teams that didn't necessarily have high expectations, but look at this. They're among some of the most surprising teams that have improved their record above what was projected back in the preseason. I also find, like big picture here, it's interesting that we pretty much have an even amount between the teams that are over versus underperforming and a handful, 5 teams right in the middle who are basically a scratch. They're doing what was projected of them before the season started. Now, by the time this season ends, 162 games, it's going to move some of these teams over here, and it's going to move some of these teams over here, and maybe you're just going to have more teams flat out in the middle. Like, we're not even a third of the way. What are we? Yeah, no, sorry, that's correct. We are at about the 1/3 point of the baseball season so far. Math is very hard while you're trying to do a YouTube video at the very same time. But the point being here is that, yeah, you still are going to have a lot of those teams and a lot of these teams and some more teams here basically change place. Like time is going to sort out all of this stuff. And even a team like the Texas Rangers right there, who are 5 games under what was expected of them, they're on pace for an 81-81 season. They won the World Series last year, but they were only expected to be an 86-76 team this season. How about a team like the Chicago White Sox, expected to be 63-99, and they're 2 games even worse than that pace-wise right now, 61-101. So again, all that's going to change, but it's interesting to take a look at that pace. MLB stadiums, but named after the largest company headquartered in their city. So I should point out here, by 2023 revenue. So if the biggest company by revenue from last year sponsored the ballpark, here would be the respective names. Now, do I like any of these? One that pops out instantly to me here is the Atlanta Braves. And I could really get into this. Home Depot Park. I feel like I'd walk in with an orange bucket, right? And maybe a tool belt, maybe an impact driver or something like that. I'm a home improvement guy. So I kind of vibe with that one. General Electric Park instead of Fenway, and that feels like it kind of fits. General Electric is very old school, so is Fenway Park. United Airlines Field. Did we spell airlines wrong? Yeah, sorry, Brooksgate. But they have the United Center already, where the Bulls and Chicago Blackhawks play. Kroger Park. Kroger, by the way, the grocery store chain, right? So that'd be interesting. I feel like you want to pick up some dinner supplies there. Progressive Field. Wait a second. They already have that. So Progressive is the largest company headquartered in Cleveland. Just so happens that they, just like Target Field, just like PNC Bank, 3 of the biggest companies in their respective cities actually sponsor already the stadium name. General Motors Park, that kind of feels cool, but they had GM Place, right, in Vancouver. That's what it used to be called, where the Vancouver Grizzlies debuted back in the NBA days. Phillips Park down in Houston, Seaboard Stadium. Not familiar with that one. Walt Disney Field. That one kind of feels pretty cool. I got to be honest with you. Walt Disney Field. Farmers Insurance Stadium for the Dodgers. World Fuel Services Park. Okay, I don't know what that's about. In Oakland, Kaiser Permanente Coliseum. You feel like you're going to the hospital when you're going to a baseball game. Comcast Park. My employer, Comcast NBC Universal. Amazon Park, which is crazy because Amazon sponsors the Seattle Kraken's arena, the old Key Arena. Is it called Climate Pledge Arena? But Amazon didn't want to call it Amazon Arena. So it's called Climate Pledge Arena. So Amazon does sponsor a venue. Qualcomm Park. Wait a second. That was the name after Jack Murphy Stadium of the old ballpark that the Padres played in. So they've already been there, done that. I like Petco way better. Ballpark and name, it just kind of goes better. Brookfield Center and Fannie Mae Park. Just interesting, right? This is a totally different alternate universe. So, by the way, San Francisco is Wells Fargo Park. I didn't know Wells Fargo was the biggest corporation in San Francisco. All right. Percentage of total games where the starting pitcher had more innings pitched than the opposing team's starting pitcher. Essentially, this shows the percentage of time that respective team has their starter in there longer than the opposition's starting pitcher. What this all boils down to is that the Oakland A's starters don't last nearly as long as Seattle's or the Yankees starters. And you can kind of draw a line right here, maybe down the middle. Like these teams on the top half, they're the ones who have their starters go much longer in games versus these teams who don't have their starters go very long. And how about this? The Oakland A's 22.4% of the time is it. That's how long they have their starter in longer than the other team's starter, as opposed to the Yankees who are only at 58 and the Mariners are at 57% there. So it's not like these guys are up here at 80 and these guys are down here at 20. It's what, 22. And if you can't read these numbers, it's about 57, 58. So not that much of a difference. But the point being is that some teams have their starters in a lot longer than the opposition. And teams like the A's, they rarely ever have their starters in as long as the other team's starter. Team OPS versus team ERA. And I'll try and make this as clear as I can. ERA on this side. OPS, obviously, here on the bottom. So we're looking at the balance of obviously getting on base, slugging percentage, just offensive output versus team ERA, what the bats are doing versus what the arms are doing. And yeah, some teams are certainly excelling up there. The Phillies, the Dodgers, the Yankees. I mean, look at teams that are struggling, obviously. The Marlins and White Sox. In the White Sox case, low ERA relative. Oh, sorry. I take it back. ERA gets higher as you go down. Higher ERA, right, and lower OPS. This is right here. This is where you don't want to be. Here, I'll do it in purple. This is where you don't want to be. This is where you do want to be. Over here, at least you have a high OPS, but a high ERA. And over here, you have a low ERA. Look at how nobody's really up here. Low ERA and low OPS. But there are a lot of teams kind of in this quadrant right here where the bats aren't so great and the ERA isn't so great. And I bet you if you equated the records there, it would kind of show you that all that makes sense. Strongest arm at each position this season. And what I find interesting here about Christian Bethancourt, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Jared Triolo, Mason Wynn, who, by the way, was not really thrilled with those Cardinals City Connect jerseys. More on that in a different video I'm doing. Anyway, but the names on the screen here in their respective positions, and when we think about some of these velocities, from a catcher throwing 84.8, or from a shortstop throwing 94 miles an hour, the hot corner 91.5, from left field 97, center 97, from right field 96. When a pitcher does this, that's what they're trained to do. Number one, like they have the mechanics, they're standing on a mound, throwing downhill with a windup, usually, to get to a pretty high velocity. You're talking about some of these players who might be coming in fielding a baseball. They might be crow hopping with some momentum, but they're not throwing downhill like a pitcher is. They're also not pitchers. So my point is, some of these players might even be throwing off their back foot on occasion. Some of these players have tremendous arms out there in the field. You have to remember what a 97 mile an hour baseball thrown. And granted, this baseball has to go like a pitcher is throwing it 60 feet, 6 inches. Actually, by the time that they are releasing the ball and they're forward off the mound and off the rubber, it's probably more like 62, 61 feet. If you really think about it, right? Their stretch. Because the mound, the rubber, and home plate are 60 feet, 6 inches apart. But these players from the outfield, they're trying to throw it, I don't know if it's all the way home, a couple hundred feet, maybe on a bounce or on a line to the catcher, or maybe they're hitting the cutoff man. But the point is, for these players to have this type of velocity on a throw where they weren't winding up and they're not pitchers, that's pretty amazing, to be perfectly honest. Some college sports teams that share the same name as an MLB team but have more championships. Brooksgate, you got me on this one. Where is this coming from? And this is a fun one, actually, because I'm local to the Bay Area. The Stanford Cardinal. Oh, Cardinal. See, but no. It's the Stanford Cardinal. Uh-oh. Stanford Cardinal. They're very particular about that. I'll give you a pass. Stanford Cardinal and the St. Louis Cardinals, the NCAA men's tennis team at Stanford, has 17 NCAA championships. The St. Louis Cardinals have 11. How about the Atlanta Braves and the Blackhawk College Braves, their softball team, 4 World Series to 6. By the way, Atlanta should have way more World Series under their belt. They were such a good team for so long in the Glavine, Smoltz era, all that stuff, Maddox. And they got always to the NLCS. They just never, and World Series sometimes, they just didn't win enough World Series. Anyway, on and on here, you can see I've never heard of the Armstrong State Pirates. I don't know what state that is, but their women's tennis team has 7 D2 NCAA championships versus the Pirates. They even have more. Think about that. You ever realize the Pirates have more World Series wins than Atlanta? How about the Virginia Wesleyan Marlins, their NCAA softball team, 3 D3 championships to Miami's 2. That's a crime right there. Atlanta's been around forever. They were good for a very long time. Miami, for large portions of their existence, has been a dumpster fire. And even they have 2 World Series to Atlanta's only 4. And Pittsburgh has more than that. Detroit, they're a pretty long-standing traditional team. They've got 5. The Auburn Tigers, like the Detroit Tigers, they have 6 NCAA championships in equestrian events. Hopefully you can see that on your screen. If every MLB team was named after the neighborhood/district they play in, according to Google Maps. So kind of like the sponsor one earlier, this is an alternate universe here. What if the team was named after the neighborhood or district that the stadium falls in? I kind of like this one for Atlanta. The Cumberland Braves, West Fens Red Sox. Ooh, the Lakeview Cubs. Like, there's some good ones here. The Armour Square White Sox, the Queen City Square Reds, 5 Points Rockies. These are kind of boring. The downtown Detroit and downtown Houston Astros, Cunningham Ridge Royals. Ooh, the Platinum Triangle Angels. Little Havana Marlins. I think they could roll with that one, to be honest with you. North Loop Twins, Queens Mets, Bronx Yankees. That's kind of fun. Coliseum Industrial Athletics. I know it's called the Coliseum Industrial Neighborhood where the stadium sits. East Village Padres, the Soto Mariners, China Basin Giants, right? There's some good, you know what? This is actually pretty creative. The Old Toronto Blue Jays. Oh, the Navy Yard Nationals. All right. So as we think about City Connect stuff and, how that has gone and not gone and all the, people say they don't like all the airport codes, the 3-letter identifiers across jerseys. How about some of this stuff right here? Maybe next time around, let's do the neighborhood names, maybe instead of the city identifiers. Percentage of each team's total at-bats this season that were in, quote, garbage time, which means a game that was, won both way or the other. It wasn't complete yet, but where the win expectancy was greater than 97% for one team or less than 3% for the other team. So how many times does somebody come up in a game where it's like, it's already kind of decided? Who leads the league? Kind of no surprise. The Oakland A's have won some games, either one-sided or lost them big. The Houston Astros have lost way more games than anybody expected already this year. Miami is a struggling team. Colorado is a struggling team. The Giants are interesting here because they're hovering, and they have been around 500. Now, this is from the month of May. This may have come out a little bit earlier, but it's kind of a trip that, like, the Nats only have 9% of at-bats in, quote, garbage time versus look at all these teams here in the 16 to 18%. So the difference between like that and that, the top and bottom, is basically double. Interesting. And you know what? I think about garbage time in basketball, but really in baseball, yeah, there are some garbage time ABs. Games against teams currently leading their division. Now, when you also think about this and look at the fact that this is 0, well, you're also playing less teams that lead their division when you're the Dodgers or Phillies because you do lead your division, right? So it takes yourself out of the equation every time you play somebody in the NL West or NL East in the Phillies case. But I also think it goes to show you that those two very good teams have not had it as tough as like Cincinnati or the Twins, or even the Astros have had a tough schedule. The A's have had a tough schedule. Padres, Cardinals, and Blue Jays. So when you think about those teams and, let's be honest, which are the ones that most people think are underperforming? Houston probably. The Blue Jays could be better. The Padres still have high hopes. The Cardinals, I don't know where exactly they're at, but that's kind of the point here is some teams have had a harder schedule right out of the gate than, kind of what's average right here. Like, those teams, it's hard to believe that the Yankees and Brewers and Angels and Royals, they've only had 6 games against teams currently leading their division. Who have they been playing this whole time so far? And again, this is all from the month of May. It may be a week or two old by the time that you're seeing this, but the point is some teams already have had it significantly harder than others. Oh, no, they didn't. Brooks Gate, you didn't really do MLB managers by hair, did you? I'm not going to telestrate over anybody here, but I'm just going to go over the categories. Sorry. Full head of hair, thinning / cul-de-sac, or bald. Do you know what I like to do in terms of my own hairline, which, by the way, is changing. It's changing as I get old. Whoa. Is that the power alley right in there? That's what I like to call it. The power alleys are like right in there. Well, that's a good look for me on the telestrator. It's like baseball. You got the gaps. You got the power alleys. I don't even want to go here. I'm not going to add any commentary to this portion of the video. Nope. Got all the tools to do it. I'm just going to let that one fade away. How much extra distance baseballs travel at each MLB stadium on average this season? This is a tremendous look at just baseballs carrying further. In a place where you would expect, no surprise, right? In purple, Coors Field, high altitude, dry air. Baseball travels 10.9 feet on average farther than an average MLB scenario. And I don't know what they determine as the average. They add everything together and find the median or the average. But baseball's going 10.9 feet farther there. Chase Field, Arizona, again, another dry climate, another indoor situation. You'll also notice indoors, typically, indoors all the time. Could be indoors. Anybody else? Indoors. I'm looking at all the domes. Mostly indoors. Seattle, sometimes indoors. They're mostly, maybe I'll put them, but thick marine layer up there in the Pacific Northwest. Here's another one that doesn't necessarily make sense to me. Like, you've got baseballs at Wrigley Field traveling on average 9.4 feet shorter than the baseball standard across the league. But, I mean, how far away is that from guaranteed rate field? It's not even necessarily two different climates, the south side versus the north side of Chicago. Like, don't get me wrong, they're not right around the corner. They're several miles apart. I think it's 7 or 8 miles apart. But it shouldn't be like 9.4 feet different. So I guess guaranteed rate field is the MLB average, right? 0.0. They are the median in all of this. So domes make a difference. Altitude makes a difference. It says here, distribution from average on identical batted balls over 90 miles an hour. Factors include temperature, elevation, roof, humidity, and wind patterns. So even if they're accounting all of this, I mean, it's interesting that some of the ones that you would expect, for obvious reasons, is where the baseball carries more. How about this? The Marlins have won their 44th game of the season 11 years in a row. They did this right before Game 44 for the Marlins, and guess what happened? They won Game 44 again here in 2024. So since 2013, in Game 44 of the season, I'm going to change this for them, 12-0. But here's the thing. Also since 2013, overall record, worst in Major League Baseball. So here's a team that usually doesn't win. They've got a .435 winning percentage since 2013. But for whatever reason, 12-0 in Game 44s on their season. So here's a tip to you. Getting ready for the 2025 Major League Baseball campaign, bet on Game 44 for the Marlins to win that game. How much each MLB team has spent per win this season. This is always an interesting way to look at it. How much you spend, how big you are, how much do you fall because of it. And the payrolls don't necessarily always get you a certain amount of wins, but it's how much you spend per win that I find interesting. I mean, look at teams right up here that are just not efficient. The Mets and Astros paying $4-point-something million per win so far this season. Now, if they both win a bunch more games, like that's going to put them back here in this healthy pack. And it's also, isn't this interesting? Like there's those two, clear cut. Then you have this group right here, which is probably where you should be. And then you got all of the frugal teams. I was trying to really come up with the right word here. So you've got the frugal teams down here. You've got the mid teams here, and then you've got the big spenders up here. And I mean, optimally, you're probably in here. I mean, I guess you'd like to be down here. Either you're winning a bunch of games, but I mean, even these teams that are winning some games, they're still not spending a lot. If you look at all those payrolls of those teams, not a lot of big spenders. So you either have to win a lot down here, or you have to not spend a lot to be down there at the bottom. Generally speaking, I think you want to be closer to this. Look at these teams right here, like the Phillies or Atlanta. You want to be right here on the bottom edge of here because that means you're winning a lot. You're not spending a lot per win, but you're also getting a lot of wins, if that makes sense. Each MLB team's most similar counterpart based on all-time achievement. What are those achievements? All-time wins, all-time win percentage, all-time playoff wins, and World Series wins. And when you actually break this down here, like the Yankees and Cardinals, they kind of do have that same feel. Generally speaking, I get it. The Yankees are the Yankees. And this one's interesting. The Dodgers and Giants, they both came out to California basically the same time. Interesting, right? That they're putting the exact same class of all those categories: wins, win percentage, playoff wins, and World Series wins. The Reds and Atlanta, two teams that, have been streaky, have had pushes, have had, eras and decades of dominance, so to speak. How about this? And I mean, this is like the ultimate big market team in Chicago and the ultimate small market team in the Oakland A's. But when it comes down to those categories right there, it's interesting that those two teams are each other's match. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but when you really like sit down and digest this and let it sink in, here's two teams that have, the Angels and Blue Jays, have won it all before, have been good in a lot of regular seasons, but don't really have that same success always in the postseason. There are a bunch of similarities between those teams. So pause that one later, go back on it, and let it sink in. Some trends so far this season here in May of 2024 in games that Robert Suarez pitches. The Padres, at that point, 14-0. In games that Aaron Judge doesn't strike out, Yankees 9-0. In games that Adolis Garcia hits a home run, Rangers 8-0. And in games that Julio Rodriguez, J-Rod, has a swipe, the M's are 7-0. And all those things, right? Like, I mean, this is the most impressive because when Suarez pitches, maybe it's in a plus situation, right? So that you know that they're up on the score, he's maintaining a lead, and that the Padres are probably going to win the game. But that's a pretty cool coincidence. Games that Judge doesn't strike out, that's also, I feel like the most impressive things are up here. Yeah, I mean, if Garcia hits a home run, chances are the Rangers are going to score some runs and win that game. And this one's just weird. Games that J-Rod has a stolen base, they're 7-0. There's no rhyme or reason for that. You could steal when you're down in a game too. Percentage of total pitches each team has swung at, right? So these are the very disciplined teams. These are the teams that'll swing at a lot more pitches. And look at, I mean, Atlanta, not really this year. Their offense isn't what it was last year. So maybe that's why they're here instead of being here in this middle of the pack. 45 to 50%. Look at all the teams bunched up right here. Most teams are there. Then you kind of have the outliers, above 50% and under 45%. So again, these are teams that'll swing less on the bottom. These are teams that'll swing a significant amount more. But everybody's generally, somewhere in that 40 to 50-something% range in terms of pitches they'll swing at. Oh, is this the last one? Some users might find this offensive. The MLB. Oh, that's just like nails on a chalkboard for me. When I hear that, and I understand most fans, and they're casually speaking, because they do say, like, the NBA, it's the National Basketball Association, or, for example, the NHL, the National Hockey League, or I know a lot of people watch the NFL, the National Football League, the National, right? But it's Major League Baseball. So it's not the Major League Baseball. It's just Major League Baseball. There's another one in baseball that also kind of just gets me every time. It's this. So if I have multiple runs batted in a baseball game, what is it? I have 3 RBI. A lot of people will say 3 RBIs. What is it? Runs batted ins? Runs batted ins? No. I have 3 runs batted in on an MLB game. I'm watching MLB with RBI, not the MLB and RBIs. Anyway, that's my personal rant, Brooksgate. Hope you appreciate that. Check out Brooksgate. Their account is growing. I mean, every time I check back in, the followers are going up, and they keep pumping out great material. So keep it up. Highly suggest you check them out. And I had fun. I always do when I break down the stats they work so hard on in presenting. That brings us here to the end of this video. I really appreciate the fact that you stuck around. Thumbs up for me down below since you did. That'll help me in this video, in this channel. And I would also love if you hit that subscribe button down below, because I want to see you back here next time. And the main way to make that happen is to go down there and subscribe to this channel right now. I'll see you next time.